The purpose behind your stories is important. And the purpose behind most of your brand stories start with your brand's big picture story, right? The foundational elements, your values, your perspective, your beliefs and motivations, opinions, all of those things. That is the point that you're trying to prove in most of your content. So once you understand your brand's story and all of those different elements and the whys behind them for your brand, then it's much more easy to start brainstorming content that you can create for social media, proving those same points again and again and again.
Hey, my feel good friend. So as of today, and by that I mean the day this episode is released, which means May 18th of 2021, we are kicking off our free 3-day Brand Vibe Challenge. Yep, the same one that I've been yapping about for about 5 episodes now. And I gotta tell you, it's already such a great time. We have so many rad, down-to-earth entrepreneurs like yourself who have joined us. And depending on when you're listening to this episode, there is still time for you to join us too. All day on Monday, our Brand Vibe Challengers have been hopping into the group to introduce themselves and their brands. And now we're about to embark on 3 days of live trainings that will help us all hone in on our unique brand vibe. Unless you're happening to listen to this episode way far into the future, which I definitely know happens, I'd still love for you to join the challenge and hone in on your brand vibe with us. The replays of all of our workshops will be available for 2 weeks, so you can do this challenge on your own time. Just head to feelgoodsocial.com/challenge to hop on in. I can't wait to see you there and get to know you in person, my friend. And now let's move on to the topic of today's episode. And I don't know if you could hear the inflection in my voice, but it's definitely one of my faves. Today, I'm sharing the replay of an Instagram Live I did about a week ago when I chatted about how your brand story and the values and perspectives that it shapes actually creates the foundation for all of your brand messaging and content. And I'll be honest, this is actually another epiphany that I had when I was diving deep into the brand vibe method that I now teach. And it's the topic of day 1's live training in our Brand Vibe Challenge. So in today's episode, you know that I'll be dropping lots of actionable tips and knowledge nuggets. But I gotta say, if you want to dive deeper into this topic with me so you can figure out your brand's unique story and how it creates the foundation for your content, definitely join our Brand Vibe Challenge now at feelgoodsocial.com/challenge. Okay, my friends, let's dive into what your brand story is, how it shapes your brand, and how you can use it to create content with ease. Hey, friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz.
Hello, my feel good friends. How are we doing today? My name is Kinsey. I'm the head honcho over here at Feel Good Social, and I'm hopping on this IG Live today to chat with you about your brand's story and how it really can create the foundation for your brand's messaging and content on social media. And I'm hopping on here to chat about this because this is one of those questions that I get asked a lot is how the heck am I supposed to show up on social media for my brand, right? That's something that a lot of us struggle with, especially as new entrepreneurs, is how the heck am I supposed to start showing up on social media for my brand in the best way? I get that question so often. And so I've actually created a system, let's call it, for really honing in on who your brand is, on the persona for your brand, so that you can bring that to social media in the best, most human way. Because I believe that that's the best way we can show up on social media, right? I call it your brand vibe. And your brand's vibe is actually consists of your brand's story, voice, and visuals. And when you can really understand what those three elements are for your brand and make sure that they align in the best way with your ideal audience in mind, right? You can show up on social media more easily, more consistently, more cohesively in all the good ways. And it just makes it way easier. You know what I mean? So today I wanted to hop on here to chat about your brand's story, why it's important, right? And how it can really help you to create content in a more consistent way, in a more compelling way, and all of those things. But let's get started with just talking about what the heck is your brand story, because I know that this can be really, really confusing for a lot of people, right? Shelby says, yes, story is my fave. Girl, me too. I mean, okay. So I feel like I say every part of your brand vibe is my favorite, right? Depending on which one I'm talking about that day. But I love your brand story because it really is, it's what creates the foundation for your brand. And once you understand what your brand's story is, it can really help you to improve your brand in all the different ways. It becomes the foundation for the way you show up in the world, for your brand, for who you're speaking to, for your messaging. And so, yes. That's what we're chatting about. I'm already getting excited about this. So if you have any questions at all about what I'm saying, definitely drop them below. Before we get started, I do want to say, if you enjoy what I'm talking about today, if you enjoy this concept of your brand vibe and figuring out how the heck you should show up on social media, definitely join my free 3-day brand vibe challenge that's happening next week. It's the link in my bio right now. It's 3 days of live trainings dedicated to your brand's voice, your brand's visuals, and your brand's story. I said that totally backwards, but it's fine. And we will be doing 3 days of live trainings to help you hone in on what those three elements are of your brand. Make sure that they align and make sure that you can take that to social media and show up in a great, wonderful way for your brand. So today I wanted to hop on here to chat about your brand's story. And I'd like to start by chatting about what it is, because I know that this can be confusing, right? You probably hear a lot of people talking about what's your brand story and storytelling, right? How stories can be so compelling in your content and all of that stuff. And it can be really confusing, right? So let's start there. Your brand's story is all of the experiences and those foundational elements that make your brand who it is, right? So it is your brand's perspective on the world and your industry. It's your brand's values and beliefs and opinions. It is your brand's, I wrote down notes. You guys know that I always write down notes for these IG lives, right? So that I don't just go crazy and go off on tons of tangents, because that will happen, believe me. But it's also the why behind your brand, right? Your brand's purpose, the motivations behind your brand. All of these things come together to create your brand's story. And it really, really is important to start there when it comes to figuring out who your brand is, because it's the foundation, right? Your brand story is really, really who your brand is. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today in today's live. Again, if you have any questions at all, drop them below. I would love to chat with you. That's what these lives are so good for, is that back and forth communication. So why is figuring out your brand story so important? Well, figuring out your brand story really helps you to humanize your brand, which I believe is one of the most important things that you can do, especially when it comes to creating social media content. I say this a lot, and I kind of am worried sometimes that it depresses people, but it's okay. It's not depressing. I'm here to help you. But there are a lot of people out there with businesses that are just like yours, selling the same thing, solving the same problems, creating the same content as yours. And it's really, really hard to figure out, how the heck can I stand out from the crowd, especially on the social media platforms where there are so many people just shouting about the same things over and over, right? Your ideal customers are being slapped in the face with content all day, every day. It's really, really difficult to figure out, how the heck am I supposed to stand out in this overcrowded space? And your brand's story is the foundation that helps you do that, because your brand story is what can help you humanize your brand and make it personable, make it more relatable, make it more trustworthy, make it unique, and make it likable, right? We've all heard about the know, like, and trust factor, and your brand story is really where you start to develop that, right? Understanding what is my brand's unique factor? What do I believe in? And it also helps to make your brand more compelling, right? To develop your brand's affinity so that your ideal customers are attracted to you. They want to lift you up and support you. They're compelled to support you. Your brand story and understanding those foundational elements can really help you do that. And so that's kind of why it is important to understand your brand story is firstly, because it helps to humanize your brand, make you relatable, up your know, like, and trust factor, make people feel like they want to support you, buy from you because they trust you, because they like you. They'll recommend you to all their friends, all of those things. It all starts with your brand story, my friends. But then also, once you understand those foundational elements, then that is really how you show up on social media. I was typing up an email earlier this morning that was like, this is actually the answer to the oh so befuddling question. I used that word and it made me giggle. The oh so befuddling question of what the heck should I post on social media? What the heck should I talk about for my brand? Your brand story is the foundation for that, right? Because your brand story is made up of your brand's values, your brand's perspective on the world, your brand's motivations and whys and all of those things. And once you understand those things, then actually that's what you should post about in different ways, right? So that is kind of the point that I wanted to make today is that once you understand what are my brand's values and why, what is my brand's perspective on my industry and why, and when I'm saying and why, I'm talking about the story behind it, right? We as humans are all, we are made up of experiences, right? Like our experiences make us who we are throughout our lives. We go through things and learn lessons, and that turns us into the person that we are. And the same thing goes for your brand. And so if you can understand what experiences created your brand into what it is today, and why do I care about this thing in my industry? Why is this my motivation behind my brand and the work that I do? All of those things have turned your brand into what it is today. And so once you understand that, it's so much easier to show up on social media. Firstly, it's easier to show up on social media because you understand like the why behind your brand. It makes you more confident to show up because you're like, oh yeah, this is why I care about. I'm super, super solid in my foundation. But also, once you understand the whys, the values, the perspective behind your brand, then you can brainstorm content more easily and continue to prove the same points again and again, right? So this is kind of my big epiphany over the week because, you know, a lot of my people struggle with storytelling. I know everyone's talking about storytelling. You're supposed to show up on social media and tell your stories, yada, yada, yada. But like, how the heck do you tell a good story? And, you know, how do you do that? It's hard for a lot of people, right? So one of the key elements to effective storytelling when it comes to life and marketing and social media is having a purpose to your story. This is what I've realized that a lot of us struggle with is that people are shouting storytelling at us. So we're like, okay, great. I'm going to show up. I'm going to create a post and yada, yada, yada. But like, it's not effective and it doesn't really make sense for my brand. And people are kind of reading it and being like, okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Like, but why? Like, what does that have to do to me with me or anything like that? The purpose behind your stories is important. And the purpose behind most of your brand stories start with your brand's big picture story, right? The foundational elements, your values, your perspective, your beliefs and motivations, opinions, all of those things. That is the point that you're trying to prove in most of your content. So once you understand your brand's story and all of those different elements and the whys behind them for your brand, then it's much more easy to start brainstorming content that you can create for social media, proving those same points again and again and again. It's much more easy to brainstorm those daily stories that everyone is talking about sharing and tell them with a purpose. Tell them in a way that helps you prove a point, right? So that is kind of what I wanted to hop on here today to share with you, is that when it comes to your brand story, it's really, really helpful for creating the foundation of your content, because not only can you show up and tell stories consistently and purposefully, but it also helps you to prove a point in all of your content. Let me know if this is making sense. I kind of get like way too excited when I talk about this stuff. And so I'd love to hear if this is making sense. If you have any questions about how your brand story really helps you to create content. So I'm going to share an example from Feel Good Social, my brand. One of my brand values is authenticity and realness, right? And I came to this, and I've always valued authenticity and realness in my life, right? But when I started my business, which I didn't even call Feel Good Social, this Feel Good Social's name, I actually changed it to Feel Good Social when I came to this epiphany in a way. So for my brand, Feel Good Social, I went through this kind of time in my branding when I created my business and I thought that an entrepreneur was supposed to be something. I thought an entrepreneur was supposed to be this shiny person who showed up, wear like nylons, black dresses all the time, do my hair every day, all these things. And I tried to show up as the person I thought I should be for a year, probably for a good year. And it was stressing me out so much. I didn't feel aligned with my business. I didn't feel authentic. And also I was kind of relating that to the way I thought you were supposed to show up on social media too. We all know how easy it is to get sucked into this idea that we're supposed to show up as like the shiniest version of ourselves on social media, right? At least that's what I thought when I first started my business. You know what I mean? Everyone's like creating their brand and posting the pretty pictures, and everyone is always so worried about the vanity metrics and how beautiful your visuals look and stuff like that. And especially when it comes to Instagram, I get where that comes from. You know, Instagram is a visual platform. The trash truck is coming, you guys. Hopefully you can't hear it too much, but if you hear a little bit of banging in the background, it's my trash truck. It's my arch enemy. Whenever I'm like recording podcast episodes or trying to do videos or something like that, the trash truck comes by. It's one of those like ongoing jokes that makes me laugh, that makes me giggle every day. So anyway, for Feel Good Social, I was kind of going through this thing where I was trying to be something I didn't feel aligned with. In my brand, in my soul, but also in my business, the way people are talking about showing up on social media, I didn't feel aligned with my business either, right? I honestly felt kind of icky when I was using social media because it just didn't feel authentic to me. And I thought that people were showing up in this way that like wasn't true to them, and they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves and feeling a lot of anxiety and all of these things. And I actually went through this kind of experience where I decided this is way too much pressure. I'm like, feel exhausted. I feel anxiety every day. No, I'm just going to start leaning into who I am and just show up as who I am and see if that works, you know, like see how that feels to me. And when I started doing that, when I started leaning into just my goofball self, when I started showing up on social media and leaning into those things that I really like can support when it comes to social media, which is authentic storytelling, you know, building genuine relationships with your human audience, trying not to care about the vanity metrics as much. You know what I mean? Those sort of things that like don't make me feel icky about social media, and showing up in an aligned way with myself. That actually is the best way to show up on social media. And that actually is when my brand really started to click. That was just like this huge epiphany that I had for me as my brand. But what I'm saying is that I went through this transition in my brand where I really started leaning into my personal value of authenticity. And what I realized is Feel Good Social's value of authenticity and realness. And when I started doing that, I realized that that's actually the best way to market your brand on social media. And everything in my life seemed to click together in a way, right? And so my point is that is one of the foundational stories of my brand, Feel Good Social. But also, that idea is what I use in a lot of my content, right? That's the point that I'm trying to prove in a lot of my content. And it's kind of the underlying message that I keep in mind always, whenever I'm creating content for Feel Good Social, I always keep authenticity in mind. And often I tell micro stories throughout my day of times when either I leaned into authenticity and it worked, or I didn't lean into authenticity and it didn't work, right? To prove that point, because that's one of those foundational elements of my brand. But I would love to know if you guys are understanding this, and also like if you're having any thoughts on what your brand values are right now, right? So quickly, I'm going to share a few tips for how to figure out what the heck your brand story is. And like I said, I am hosting a free 3-day brand vibe challenge next week. It's kicking off next Monday. And I would love for you to join, because this is one of the trainings in the 3 days of trainings. We'll be talking more about your brand story, and we can go back and forth and really understand it. I'm also giving out a brand vibe blueprint to help you organize your thoughts, because Lord knows I always need it. But you can join that at feelgoodsocial.com/challenge. It's the link in my bio, just so you know. But anyway, some tips for figuring out your brand's story and the foundational elements of your brand. Where I like to start, there's 2 ways we can go about it, right? We can either start with your brand's values and asking questions like, what do I want to support in my industry and the world? What do I want to change in my industry and the world? You know, what opinions and beliefs do I have? What's the why behind my brand? What's the motivation, right? Those are those foundational elements that your story has helped to create for your brand. Or if you don't know what those are, then that's when you can start kind of going at it from a backwards approach, where instead of starting there and then brainstorming the why behind it, what experiences have I had in my life? What experiences has my business had in its life to create these values, to create this perspective, to create this motivation, right? Instead of starting there, you can actually start at it from the back end. So you can think, okay, what pivotal experiences have I had in my life and in my brand's life that really stand out in my mind as important? What experiences have I gone through? What lessons have I learned? What transformations have I made in the life of my business and before even, right? Because you are the head of your business. You are who's created your brand. And so your pivotal moments for your brand's story can actually have occurred way before you even started your business, right? This has happened for me multiple times for my other brand value of joy. I have so many experiences in my life where I have been chasing joy, where I've leaned into joy, cultivated joy, and I realize that that is so important when it comes to social media too. And so that's actually a foundational element of my brand too. So you can brainstorm those pivotal moments that you've experienced in your life, that you've experienced in the life of your business, and then think about the themes in those stories as well. How can you compete with other brands? Okay, so this is a wonderful point that I'm making. When you figure out and hone in on your brand's story, that is what can really help to humanize your brand, make you unique, make you likable, make you relatable, make you trustworthy, and compel people to want to support you. I truly believe that honing in on your brand's specific human vibe, creating a persona for your brand on social media, understand what does my brand care about and why, what does my brand want to change in the world, in my industry, and why. Honing in on those things and using it again and again in your messaging and as the foundation of your content, that's how you stand out. That's how you stand out on social media. And another way to stand out too is by honing in on your brand's vibe in general, but your brand's voice and visuals are also really important. Those are the other 2 elements of your brand's vibe that come together with your brand's story to really create this persona, right? Your brand's voice is the best example of your brand's personality, is what I like to say, right? So adding a little personality and pizzazz to your brand is a wonderful way to differentiate yourself and stand out on these crowded social media platforms. And then also, honing in on the correct visuals that you should use for your brand that are attractive to your ideal customers is another really great way to stand out on the platform so that, people want to buy from you and not the Jane Schmain brand over there that's just like yours, but not as cool. That's my little thing. So that is my little spiel on brand story, my friends. I did ask if anyone had questions about brand story, values, and storytelling earlier today in my stories. And we did get a question, which is Zenden Coffee asked, am I the brand or is the brand me? Which I loved. Because I thought, I don't know, I just love big questions like that. And I was like, ooh, good one. You know what I mean? And I love this question because it's confusing, right? A lot of us are trying to show up on social media. They're like, everyone says to create a personal brand. Business is personal, but how do I show up? And am I my brand or what's going on? That's basically the question that she's asking, right? And so my answer to you is, I love this because I run into this again and again when we're teaching brand vibe, right? So here's the thing. You as the business owner of your business are a human, right? You yourself are a human. And as humans, we're multifaceted. We experience different emotions every day. We say different things every day. We speak to different people in different ways every day. We have a lot of things going on. We have lots of stories, lots and lots of stories that make us up into who we are. This is why I love Brand Vibe, because we're creating a persona for your brand. And we're basically we can apply this to being a human being as well for the most part, right? So as a human, you have a lot of stuff going on. You are multifaceted and beautiful. As a brand, we need to be more specific than you as a human, right? So I do believe that you should be a part of your brand. I do believe that you are an important element. You should be the face of your business. Business is personal. All those things. It's wonderful. Bringing yourself into your business is another wonderful way to differentiate yourself and stand out on the platform to grow your know, like, and trust factor. All those things. You should be a part of your brand, but your brand should not be as multifaceted as you are as a human being. Was that what I was trying to say? Was that a sentence? Hopefully it was. Your brand is not as complex as you are, right? So the difference is, instead, I love to use this example when I'm talking about your brand's voice. When you are showing up in your day as your awesome, multifaceted human self, you are speaking to a bunch of different people all the time, right? In different ways. You're using different voices throughout your day. So you wouldn't speak to your dog in the same way that you would speak to your boss or your husband, right? But when it comes to your brand and your brand's voice, you only want to be speaking to your ideal audience, right? You really want to hone in on that one unique voice that you use to speak to your ideal customers. And the same thing goes for your brand's story in a way, right? As humans, there are so many pivotal moments that you've had in your life. You are a very complex human being, and that's awesome. So your story, you have tons and tons and tons of different experiences that make up who you are as a human. But when it comes to your brand, you really want to be specific to those stories that have turned your brand into what it is in your industry, for your business, for your ideal customers that will make you more relatable to them, right? So we need to be more purposeful. So when it comes to, am I my brand or is my brand me? I would say you are a part of your brand. And as a human, you are more complex and you need to bring those elements of yourself into your brand that make sense for your business, the way you help people and the people who you are helping. So hopefully that makes sense. Habib, your Rehman Shai, I cannot, I'm so sorry. I probably totally butchered your name. Says, same as Simon Sinek says, people don't want to buy what you did. How will you do it? People always attract by your product why you did it. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I can go down a deep rabbit hole when it comes to this stuff. Is a lot of times as business owners, we always want to sell our products, right? Like we want to sell what you get sort of thing. We want to sell what we're selling. And that makes sense for us because we're in the middle of our businesses. But when it comes to your ideal audiences, people are more compelled by the transformations and the benefits, right? Oh man, this is a good one. I was just sharing with one of my one-on-one coaching clients about this, how there is the product and there's the benefit, right? So the product that you're selling is what you're selling. It's how you help people. My product is my social map online course, right? But what people really respond to and what compels people to buy a lot of times is the benefit that they are getting from your product. Right. So, a way to show up on social media in a more purposeful way that gets you more sales, that grows you an audience of the right people who will actually feel compelled to buy from you, a way to show up on social media that's less stressful, that's not going to take over your life. All of those things are benefits of my online course, The Social Map. So when it comes to selling my online course, that's what I talk about instead of like just saying the social map. This is what you get. You know what I mean? It's still important to tell people what they're going to get, but what is going to compel people to buy and take action is usually the transformation of going from pain points to pleasure points, and then the benefit of the why behind why are people buying your product. Sandrine says, can you give an example on how you make concrete storylines on a specific value on social media, for example? Yeah, girl. I love storytelling. Okay. So for example, we all have like so many different experiences in our lives, that are relatable, that like light us up, that make sense and stuff. And there are so many different ways we can tell different stories, right? So, for example, I share a lot of outdoor pictures. I'm an outdoorsy girl. I love to rock climb. And so, for example, my post from, I think it was last Friday, I shared a photo of me rock climbing. And it was this route that I basically, I don't know if you're a rock climber. I mean, this is relatable for anyone who is in a hard situation. This is actually relatable for business. And that's the story that I turned it into, right? So basically I was rock climbing and I was trying to climb up this route it was a grade that I could climb, right? It was pretty easy, or it was like within my abilities supposedly to climb this route. It's called a 510 is the route I was climbing. And I'd climbed tons of 510s before, I feel pretty confident whenever I walk up to a route and like the guidebook says 510, I'm like, I got this, cool, And so earlier in the day, I was climbing this route, this 510, and this happens a lot with 510s, which is just funny. It was so shitty. It was so hard for me because when it comes to rock climbing, like whoever sets the route, which is like putting the bolts on the wall and deciding how people are supposed to climb it, whoever sets it gets control of that. Right. So you can walk up to a wall and you're supposed to climb this route that I think I can climb. And then I get up there and I find out it was set by like a dude who was probably like 7 feet tall. And so the moves are like all out of reach. I can't reach the bolts. I like climb up and I'm like trying to reach this bolt and I'm like afraid I'm going to fall. And it was just like super, super shitty. Right. And then I'm like feeling frustrated. I walk away from the wall and I like look at the guidebook and there's this 511 that I see in the guidebook. And for whatever reason, I was like, this looks like an interesting route. And my mind immediately goes, why the heck would you try to climb this route, Kinsey? Like you just got your butt kicked on this 510 that's easier than this 511. Like, why do you think you can climb this route? You know what I mean? But I walk up to the route and it just like looks beautiful. I'm like, some little voice in my head is telling me that I got this. You know what I mean? So I start climbing the route and it was as if like it was made for me in a way, right? Because it was probably set by some badass climber chick who's only 5 foot tall like I am, you know what I mean? And so I was like hitting all the holds. I was like climbing I just felt super aligned with this route. It felt easy to me, even though it was technically harder than this other route that I was trying, right? And so basically, long story short, I'm way better at writing stories than I am at telling them. So Sorry this is why I have notes, because I tend to go off on tangents. So long story short, I had this photo of this route and I started looking at that photo and kind of thinking about the story behind that photo. And if I was telling that story to a rock climber, if I was telling that story to a friend or someone else in my life, I wouldn't have told the story in the same way that I told the story on social media. But I was looking at that photo, I was remembering that route, and I was thinking about the themes behind that story. And one of my Feel Good Social content pillars right now, because of my brand vibe challenge, is creating an aligned brand and showing up on social media in the most purposeful way, like how to create an aligned brand and bring it to social media. That's one of my content pillars right now. So I looked at that photo and I thought, oh, this theme behind this story totally fits with creating an aligned brand, right? Sometimes you're trying to force the holds. Sometimes the bolts are out of reach. And that's probably because you're trying to create a brand that doesn't feel authentic and aligned to your business. But if you really, find that brand and find your foundational elements of your brand story, figure out what your brand's personality is and how you can use your voice to add personality to your brand, how to pick the right visuals to show up on social media, when all of those three things align and come together in a purposeful way, then you can show up on social media in a way that's easy, right? So hopefully that makes sense. But that is how I kind of created that storyline from that photo and told a story in a way that I proved a point that made sense for my business. You know what I mean? When you can understand your content pillars and what you want to talk about for your brand, the foundational elements of your messaging, then that's how you can all of a sudden pick out stories from your life and understand how to tell a story to your people. Sandrine says, wonderful example. How do you define your brand content pillars? Yes, girl. Okay. This is all coming back around full circle. So your brand's story is like your foundational content pillars, right? Your brand's foundational values, perspective on your industry, the points that you're trying to prove, the things that you're trying to change in your industry and the world. All of those things create your brand's story. And they are your foundational content pillars. That said, your content pillars can change from month to month. This is actually something that I teach in my online course, The Social Map, is that we all have foundational content pillars that we can talk about and show up on social media, create content around for our brand in that just general way, right? We hone in on those in my social map course. But then also when it comes to showing up on social media in the most strategic way for your business, your content pillars can change throughout your month. Or you could have different focuses throughout your month, right? So whenever we batch plan our content, we think about our big picture of our month. What are we trying to promote? What are we trying to talk about? What are we trying to sell this month? And then what are our content pillars for this month too? So like I said, I think that alignment is a foundational element of my brand. I mean, it kind of goes along with authenticity, right? Alignment, authenticity, just leaning into who you are, leaning into what brings you joy. Those are foundational elements of my brand. But this month, because I am doing the Brand Vibe Challenge next week, sign up through the link in my bio. And because I am, selling the social map and all of those things, my focus for this month is branding, is creating an aligned brand. And so that's how I created that story about the rock climbing. This is what I love about honing in on your brand's content pillars and really, really understanding your brand's messaging, is because it can be so confusing for you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a multifaceted human, to be when you start thinking about it as yourself as a human, it feels complex, because it is, because we use multiple voices every day. We tell stories to different people in different ways every day, right? But when it comes to your brand, the one thing that I want you to remember is that you are speaking to your ideal audience. You're showing up for your brand and helping your ideal customers. That is the lens and the focus for how you turn a human into a specific brand, right? Remember, what you do, why you do it, and who you're speaking to for your brand. And that's how it becomes like the crazy overwhelm of what a human is. And you turn that into a very focused, very specific message for your brand. Hopefully that's helpful. I get so excited when I talk about this, you guys. Thank you so much for showing up, my friends. If anyone has any more questions, drop them below real quick. Again, I am doing my brand vibe challenge next week, and I have more of a specific outline. I have more tips to give you for the 3 trainings. We're going to be getting together in our Facebook group next Monday, May 17th. I'm like, what is that date? Next Monday, May 17th is the kickoff party. So I'll be giving you our brand vibe blueprint. It's this blueprint I've created because you know how important notes are to me and just organizing your thoughts and ideas. I'm one of those people that I have like 700 ideas all the time. Enneagram 7 over here. And so I'll be delivering your brand vibe blueprint next Monday, May 17th in our Facebook group. I'll be hopping in there to ask everyone to introduce themselves so that we can get to know each other and our brands and help each other throughout the week as we're going through the 3 trainings. Then on Tuesday, I'll be giving a story training. So I will be diving deeper into, okay, let's outline these pivotal moments. Let's outline your brand's values. Let's really figure out what your brand story is and those foundational content pillars for your brand. Then on Wednesday, we'll be talking about brand voice, which is the best representation of your brand's personality. It's how you relate to your ideal customers in the best way. It's how you speak to them. And then also it's the relationship of your brand to your ideal customers. Sandrine says, how long does these training last? Girl, I ran this challenge once last August, I think it was. And I was like, these trainings are only going to be 20 minutes and they are, going to be super actionable and yada, yada. Long story short, the trainings are probably going to be an hour each. I have learned, if you can tell from this IG Live, I'm very long-winded and they're jam-packed with tips each day of trainings. So each day is probably going to last around an hour, I'll be honest. But I have outlined the main points that you will need to know in the Brand Vibe Blueprint. And then also the replays will be available for 2 weeks. Okay. So if you happen to miss a live training, you can do the trainings on your own time. Don't worry. I would love to have you join us. The link is in my bio. It's feelgoodsocial.com/challenge. Kicking off next Monday. Then it's the pre-party, get to know each other, fun little party where we'll all follow each other on Instagram. Then it is the story training. Then it's the voice training, talking about your personality. Then it is a visuals training, which is what people traditionally think about branding. And it's, really honing in on those visuals that make sense for your brand, that are not only a representation of you and your brand, but also will attract your ideal customers. So you can grow a following of people who will actually want to buy from you. Thanks, Tanya. Tanya says, Kinsey is very good. I've worked with her for the last year and she knows her stuff. Hair flipping over here. Thanks, lady. And then, on the voice day, it's going to be super fun. There's like a little extra homework that has to do with Pinterest, which is super cool. And then on Friday of next week, we will have an after party where we'll all hop in. You guys can ask me any lingering questions that you might have. We'll really hone in on who your brand is in the best way. And also I'll be sharing tips for how to now take your brand vibe and put it to social media, create social media content consistently, cohesively, in the best way so that you can show up in the best way and market your brand in the best way on social media. And it's going to be super fun, you guys. So I would love to have you join me next week. Join the challenge through the link in my bio right now, feelgoodsocial.com/challenge, and we can chat then.
Did you like that live replay, my friend? If you did, definitely give me a follow on Instagram at feelgoodsocial so that you can hop on with me next time I go live. And while you're at it, send me a DM. Let me know who you are. I will definitely give you a follow back. And please don't forget to join our free Brand Vibe Challenge that's happening this week. It's going to be jam-packed with value, epiphanies, and so much fun. So don't wait. Sign up now at feelgoodsocial.com/challenge. I hope you have a wonderful day, my friend. thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.